Hi guys, how's your day? I hope it's sunny. I have just one long story for you today, and it's about mother-in-law. I know you've missed Just No Mother-in-Law stories, so buckle up and enjoy. Dear husband and I are newlyweds, like brand spanking newly married. Our relationship has been called a romantic movie more than once, but when you know you've met your spouse and you're self-aware enough to take action, you just do it. We've been together 2.5 years, married about 30 days. It's been a ridiculous whirlwind romance where we both swept each other off our feet. There's a lot of backstory here, a lot of history with mother-in-law that I'm sure I'll eventually get to writing. Some key points are that mother-in-law is ultra-religious and super narcissistic. Dear husband grew his blinding spine. Yes, so blinding I have actually mistaken it for the sun, to survive under mother-in-law's reign of terror. She lies. Oh man, does she lie. And she's got a very convenient selective memory. Classic narc mother-in-law. We're lucky in that we see her maybe once or twice a year, because we live so far away from her. But she calls every other Sunday after lunch with her church friends. Sometimes we pick up, and sometimes we're out with our fur baby having an adventure. She seems to only ever call on Thursday or a Sunday. I, with help from my absolute Just Yes family, planned our destination wedding, literally across the world, in 6 months. A big week-long vacation where I had to keep track of everyone who flew into my father's home country, translate, identify foods, schedule airport pickups, drop-offs, hotel stays, domestic flights, meals, and events. I'm very well organized and super type A. This was my jam. It was a very memorable wedding and one of the greatest opportunities to have a gigantic family vacation. Even my brother-in-laws were there. Awesome side note is that I reformed my Just No father-in-law into a Just Yes in time for our wedding, and now he gets along with my parents so well. They collectively made tentative plans to vacation again together. We were saving a ton not having the wedding in the States, and figured we could use the extra cash to get stuff that really meant something. We racked our brains, and I found the perfect thing: a wedding ring workshop. We were so ducking excited to go and make our own rings that we'd be wearing forever. For a while, it was our go-to answer whenever someone asked, "How's planning going?" "Great, we're really excited. We have a day class where we make our wedding rings. It's gonna be so awesome. We're forging our future." By the way, if you have a DIY wedding ring shop in your area and you're going to get married, I suggest you do this if you can afford it. It was a really awesome day, and I get to wear a ring that my dear husband made with his own hands every day, and we got this cool opportunity to learn something awesome together. Dear husband really took well to jewelry making and has a newfound appreciation for all the crafty things I do around the house. Bonus ego boost, because our rings are one of a kind. He gets a lot of compliments at the office for having a really cool ring. People ask him where he bought it a lot. He gets that proud smile and loves saying, "My wife and I made them. We melted down ore and made rings." Mother-in-law knew the day we were going to make our rings. We'd spoken to her about it in length just a few days before. She knew every detail, when it was, what time we had to leave to get there, how long the trip was going to take, etc. So on that rainy Saturday morning, we kissed our fur babies goodbye and set off 2 hours south to make it to the studio by 10 a.m. sharp. At 9:45, driving down the highway, so close to our exit, mother-in-law calls. Dear husband and I thinking, we'll have to let her go in a few minutes anyway. Let's just pick up and see what she needs. She doesn't usually call on Saturday, never in the morning, and she knows we're on our way to make our wedding rings. It's gotta be important. We picked up on the car's Bluetooth. She tells us that she's been diagnosed with a rare incurable autoimmune disease and that she doesn't know how long she has. I switch from happy, excited mode to business mode. My own mother is 2 years away from being out of the woods with her cancer, and I show my love through action. I'm frantically Googling while she's talking. Dear husband is silent in shock. I ask, "When were you diagnosed?" She responds, "They aren't entirely sure, but they're 95% sure it's this." I thought, so not diagnosed then, only 95% sure. Have you had a biopsy yet? This seems to take her by surprise. She didn't know about my mom having cancer. I didn't tell her because it's not my story to tell. So she doesn't know the extent of research I've done, or the amount of times I've slept in the hospital chair, or the conversations I've had with anyone in the medical field who would talk to me. I was pretty familiar with the steps that needed to be taken at that point. I was trying to get more info from her so that I could help and give her tools to get better. I knew what my mom was like after surgery. I remember her pain and what she liked having at her fingertips. I wanted to find out what was going on with my mother-in-law. I was already mentally scheduling a flight out there on the next 3-day weekend. Mother-in-law sheepishly responds that she put off her biopsy until next week. She deflects and starts saying love-bomby stuff. I just love you two so much. Please don't tell your siblings yet. I want to tell them myself. I'm not feeling sick. I feel healthy. I can still go biking. We're both in shock. Dear husband planned to circle the block a few times to get a parking space, but he just couldn't deal, and we pulled into a lot. She just kept talking, and dear husband eventually said, "Well, Mom, we're here at the place. We have to go inside and make our rings now." "Oh, right, that thing. Have fun. I love you both." We hang up. I timidly ask dear husband how he's feeling. He responds, "I don't know. I don't really want to think about my mom dying right now. I want to think about you and our future." We put aside mother-in-law for a whole day and just enjoyed ourselves. We finally talked about it a few days later. I went full force wedding planning and mother-in-law medical checking. I started to schedule for brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and us to be with her so she could get some help for right after the biopsy. I buy her a jacket that she can wear during recovery. I get engraved "With you always" on the back. I start making pasta bakes and stews that I ship to her frozen overnight so that she can still eat healthy, save money, and not have to cook for herself. All the while, she's saying that she wants to do a 10-day biking tour in the northern part of the country we're getting married in. I think this is great because that means I don't have to worry about her day-to-day. That saves me having to think around the possible awkwardness of her being around father-in-law, whom she cheated on and divorced from. And she's well enough to take a 10-day strenuous tour of a foreign country. With only a few weeks left until we leave, I finally get fed up waiting for her to let me know her plans. I need to pay the deposit for the driver and get him the list of everyone's arrivals and departures. And I also need to confirm her room at the hotel venue. We call her up. She says, "Please don't be upset, but I won't be able to attend the wedding. I know my own body, and I just can't bear to think what I would do if something happened to me. I'm also starting my chemo, and I have to be here for that." We understand, of course, she's dying. We can't expect her to fly 20+ from her deathbed. We decide we'll fly to see her after the wedding. I include her via video chat, along with my mom and best friends, to pretty much every major wedding thing I do: dress shopping, tux shopping, invitation designs, etc. I want her to feel included because she's missing out on her first son's only wedding, and I figure that's pretty devastating from a loving mother's point of view. 3 days before our wedding, we're out on the town in the fatherland, what I lovingly call my dad's home country, with our best friends and dear husband's siblings. We're singing along to the awesome live band they've got doing covers. We're getting free drinks from the owner of the bar for bringing in so much business on an otherwise dull day. Congratulations on the wedding. Drunk, I asked sister-in-law, who was the only person to have visited mother-in-law at that point, "How's mother-in-law? Did she give you a definitive date on when we need to put her in hospice?" Dear husband and I are planning on. Sister-in-law interrupts. "Wait, what? Mom's not dying. She's still going to the gym and working 12-hour days." Dear husband and I look at each other. I see both rage and defeat in his eyes. We decide right then and there we're no contact. The Sunday after our return home, she calls. Dear husband isn't interested in picking up. This goes on for another 2 weeks, every Sunday, and I say she doesn't even know we're mad. Just talk to her for a second and let her know why we are going no contact. If she admits to lying, we can try to heal. Dear husband is pessimistic, but agrees to answer the next time she calls. I don't have a great week, emotionally. The wedding was, like I said, memorable. Looking back on it, I had fun, but I still want to cry sometimes about it. Then an old friend of mine gets into an accident and slips into a coma. Dear husband is not well equipped to handle actual grief from me. He's very empathetic, and his very strong wife broke the duck down. So he was giving me a little space when his mom calls. I'm sitting at my vanity, playing with makeup looks to distract myself as I'm getting text updates from my other friend who is at the hospital with the family. Dear husband comes into the room, mother-in-law on speaker. She starts with asking how the wedding was, how was vacation, etc. We give her short answers, and dear husband starts bombarding her with medical questions. How's the chemo going? What's the name of your illness? When do we need to come up there? She gives us short answers. Dear husband is frustrated and emotionally drained. I am too. Her lying gets under his skin. He says, "Oh, well, I must have misunderstood sister-in-law because she said you're not terminal as you would have had us believe." She pauses and says, "Define terminal." Like what? If you have to ask, you're not terminal. Dear husband just says, "No, I'm not defining that. Please just stop lying to us. We were worried our whole trip and wedding that you would have no one in case of emergency because all your kids are out of the country. You let us worry about you on a day that should have been all about dear wife and I." She gets ducking pissed, starts yelling at us, screaming that she is sick, and that if you think I lied about this to get out of your wedding, I'd be crushed. He says, "That's exactly what I think." She reaches a new level of banshee-esque screaming. Dear husband would later admit that it reminded him a lot of his youth. She says, "I can't deal with this right now. I'm going to send you both the diagnosis and we'll talk in an hour." Okay. Dear husband looks at me. I just shrug and mouth, "Sure." We wait a while, no email. So we decide we're hungry and I'm upset about my friend being in a coma. I need to not be in the house and we both need a distraction. We gear up the fur baby for a long walk and off we go on an adventure. A few hours later, we're pulling up to a fur baby-friendly restaurant and mother-in-law calls back. She immediately lays into us, saying, "Did you get the email? Have you read it through?" Dear wife and I went to lunch, haven't had a chance to check my email. We'll do it when we get home and I'll call you back. Shouldn't be more than an hour or so. "I don't need this right now," blah 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 shrieking. I give dear husband the "that's enough" motion, and he ends the convo with a "we'll call you back." I read her diagnosis and do research. Yes, she's sick, but she's certainly not dying, and it's not the rare disease she told us it was before. It's sorta kinda related, but not that serious. So, to put it in not confusing terms, let's just say she told us she was at end-stage liver cirrhosis. Turns out, she's just got liver damage. She'll have to keep up her health and only drink alcohol in moderation the rest of her life. But it's manageable and she's not dying. I do a ton of research, and I see that the treatment for her should just be a daily dose of steroids and on her way she goes. She's saying that she has to go in every 2 weeks for aggressive IV chemo. My godmother has pancreatic cancer, and when I asked her about her treatments, she said, "I go into chemo for a 2-week stint. Then my body gets ducked up, and I'm wiped out for 6 months. That's aggressive chemo. I don't know what the duck your mother-in-law is talking about, and I don't know anyone in my ward that does that." We stay no contact, and then one day, mother-in-law texts us a photo of her little IV bag that has her name on it, and the big bold chemotherapy at the bottom. Dear husband and I feel really bad now. She's obviously sick, but she's not dying. She's definitely lied, omitted the full truth to us for pity attention. She speaks in vague enough terms to spin the tale any way she wants. Classic narcissist. Dear husband called her last Sunday around the time she usually calls us. His intention was to apologize for accusing her of not being sick, not for anything else. She didn't pick up. I don't even know what to do or how to think. She's lied to us a lot before, and logically, I feel that I shouldn't feel bad for assuming that this was a lie too. But I do feel bad. And I don't know what to do. She's not always terrible. In fact, she's gotten much better since dear husband's childhood. When she's around, she's usually pretty loving and generous. When she's not bringing up stuff from the past and getting under dear husband's skin for no reason. I flip-flop between feeling damn terrible for assuming she's a liar and not feeling bad at all, because she totally is, just not about being sick. Edit. The bag does say chemotherapy. I fixed that. Thanks to all you lovely llamas with better understanding of medical stuff. Thank you. I really needed that validation. Her IV is legitimate. It's a clear bag with a white label on top that has her name and date of birth. Another large white label that takes up most of the bag has the medication and dosage. On the bottom, on a black label, it says chemotherapy, dispose properly, or whatever, not exact. Guys, I'm not spineless either. There is a lot of story here that you don't know yet. I didn't convince dear husband to break no contact. I told him straight up that I was going to be no contact, scorched earth style, with her, and she was never ever going to meet his future grandkids. Dear husband convinced me to at least be very, 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 very low contact, just so I can listen impartially, because he doesn't feel comfortable having conversations alone with her anymore. I also don't trust him to not get over emotional and start yelling back at her. I don't think that fighting fire with fire will help. He wants me to not be so rigid so that I can feel comfortable piping up and telling her off. She's still never going to meet her grandkids. My first priority is now, and has always been, the safety and happiness of my family. My family is dear husband and fur baby now. If that means that I bend over backwards to take care of her so that dear husband doesn't have to, I will. I told him to pick up the phone because dear husband was the one waffling. He was the one who wanted to confront her. I said, if you think that will help, go for it. And I gave him the devil's advocate, unpopular advice of, she doesn't know we're mad, so that he could understand that I would support his choice even if I didn't agree. We both learned a hard lesson. He called her to apologize without discussing it with me. That's not something he's ever going to do again. All of mother-in-law's children move far, far away from her. Sister-in-law is closest, lives a 6-hour drive away. Before all of this, I was the only one left that wouldn't roll her into the closest ditch when she croaked. Now, I've claimed my primo spot to put my foot when we kick her into the gutter. They do use chemotherapy to treat some autoimmune disorders. I believe it's usually very low doses though, unless it's really serious, like reboot the whole system deal. She wouldn't be working and going to the gym during that. My guess, she had this diagnosis, found out they will use low doses of chemotherapy, and decided to milk it for all it's worth. Now, I don't want to take away from her poor health. It must be crappy having to go through all that. But I have no sympathy for her here, because she messed with everyone's emotions. She made them think she was dying. Her son was going through what should have been the happiest time of his life, and she couldn't have that. She needed to be his focus, even if it made him miserable. OP doesn't need that in her life. If OP's husband still wants to keep some contact, they should keep it minimal and a rare occasional call. They should put the phone down as soon as she starts manipulating, blaming, screaming, etc.